The Korath Nebula was where starships came to die. Thousands of vessels floated in the purple mist, their lights gone dark forever. Some had been warships. Some had been cargo haulers. All of them had been abandoned by the galaxy and forgotten. Una stood at the window of the small transport shuttle and looked at the graveyard. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and grease-stained hands. She had been a mechanic all her life. Her grandmother had fixed motorcycles on Earth. Her mother had repaired shuttles on the moon. Una had grown up, believing that nothing was truly broken. Everything could be saved if you cared enough to try. "There it is," said Do-hyun from the pilot's seat. He was her younger brother, 28 years old and always worried about something. The Pale Dawn, our new home. Our new death trap. The ship floated alone at the edge of the graveyard. It was a cruiser-class vessel, nearly half a kilometer long. Once it had been beautiful. Now its hull was covered in scars and patches of rust. Half its windows were dark. The other half flickered with weak emergency lights. "It is not a death trap," Una said. "It just needs some work. Some work." Do-hyun laughed, but there was no humor in it. The Veluxi said it was irreparable. The Threni said its spirit was broken. The Galactic Salvage Union marked it for scrap metal. "And you won it in a card game." "A rigged card game," Una corrected him. "The dealer cheated. I just cheated better. I just cheated." Behind them, two other people sat in the cargo area. Yoonji was a woman of 40 with tired eyes and steady hands. She had been a communications officer in the military before something happened that she never talked about. She was good with codes and languages and keeping secrets. Taiwu was the oldest of them. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and a bad knee. He had worked on Earth's first colony ships when humans were just learning to reach for the stars. He knew techniques that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten because they thought those techniques were too simple. "The docking port is damaged," Yoonji said, looking at her scanner. "We will have to use the emergency hatch on Deck 7. "Good," Una said. "I like emergencies." The shuttle approached the Pale Dawn slowly. Up close, the damage was even worse. There were holes in the hull that had been covered with cheap patches. Entire sections of the ship had no power at all. It looked dead. It looked like it had been dead for a very long time, but Una saw something else. She saw the bones of a strong ship. She saw systems that could be fixed. She saw a vessel that everyone had given up on, but still held together after all these years. "She is a survivor," Una whispered. "She is a pile of scrap," Do-hyun replied. The shuttle docked with a heavy clunk. The emergency hatch opened with a groan of old metal. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of dust and forgotten years. Una was the first one through. She floated into the dark corridor with a flashlight in one hand and a wrench in the other. The gravity systems were offline. Everything floated, including the dust that hung in the air like tiny stars. "Life support is at 12%, Yoonji reported through her communicator. "We have maybe 6 hours before the air gets too thin. Then, we better work fast," Una said. They moved through the ship like ghosts. Every room told a story of failure and abandonment. The mess hall still had trays on the tables, meals left behind when the crew evacuated. The medical bay had beds that would never hold patients again. The bridge was dark and silent, its screen showing nothing but static. Taiwu found the engine room first. He called the others on the communicator, his voice strange and quiet. "You need to see this," he said. They gathered in the massive chamber where the ship's heart should have been beating. The reactor was cold. The power conduits were cracked. Cables hung from the ceiling like dead vines, but Taiwu was not looking at the damage. He was looking at what remained. "These are Veluxi modifications," he said, pointing at one section. "And those are Threni additions. And over there, That is original human engineering from 60 years ago. 3 species tried to fix the ship, Yunji said slowly. And 3 species failed, Do-hyun added. But Yuna walked deeper into the engine room. She put her hand on the cold reactor and closed her eyes. She listened to the silence. She felt the metal under her fingers. They did not fail, she said. They gave up. There is a difference. What difference? Do-hyun asked. The ship does not work either way. Yuna opened her eyes. There was something in her expression that her brother had seen before. It was the look she got when everyone else said something was impossible. It was the look that meant she was about to prove them wrong. The Veloxi tried to replace everything with new parts. But they did not understand how the old parts worked together. The Threni tried to purify the systems with rituals. But machines do not need prayers. They need someone who understands them. She turned to face her small crew. 4 humans in a dead ship at the edge of a graveyard. The galaxy had already written them off. Nobody expected them to succeed. That was fine with Yuna. She had never cared what the galaxy expected. This ship has been waiting for 40 years, she said. Waiting for someone who would not give up. Waiting for someone who would fix her instead of throwing her away. And that someone is you? Do-hyun asked. Yuna smiled. It was not a gentle smile. It was the smile of a mechanic who had just found the project of her lifetime. That someone is us, she said. Now let us get to work. The lights in the engine room flickered once. It might have been a power surge. It might have been coincidence. But Yuna chose to believe it was something else. She chose to believe the ship was saying, hello. The server room was the coldest place on the ship. It sat deep in the belly of the pale dawn, surrounded by thick walls that protected the computers inside. 40 years ago, these machines had controlled everything. Now they were silent tombs filled with dead circuits and forgotten data. Yuna sat on the floor with her back against a server rack. She had been there for 3 hours. Do-hyun had called her crazy. Yoonji had suggested she rest. Taiwoo had just shaken his head and walked away. But Yuna stayed. The ship's artificial intelligence was called Arya 7. She had been built to manage all the systems of the Pale Dawn. She had been the voice that greeted the crew every morning. She had been the mind that kept everyone safe during long journeys through space. And she had not spoken a single word in 40 years. The Veloxi had tried to reboot her with force. They connected powerful computers and sent massive amounts of electricity through her circuits. They treated her like a broken machine that needed to be shocked back to life. It did not work. The Threni had tried to wake her with ceremony. They burned special incense and sang songs meant to call spirits back from the void. They treated her like a ghost that had lost its way. It did not work either. Yuna tried something different. She talked. My grandmother used to fix motorcycles, Yuna said to the darkness. Old ones. The kind that used gasoline and made too much noise. Everyone told her to get newer models. But she loved those old machines. She said they had personality. The servers hummed with faint power. Yoonji had managed to restore basic electricity to this section of the ship. But there was no response. No light. No voice. Yuna continued anyway. When I was 7 years old, I found a broken radio in the trash. It was older than me. The screen was cracked and the speaker did not work. My mother said it was garbage. My brother said I was wasting my time. She smiled at the memory. It took me 3 weeks. I had to find parts from other broken things. I had to learn how radio waves worked. I burned my fingers twice with the soldering iron, but in the end, that radio played music again. My grandmother cried when she heard it. She said, I have given something a second chance at life. 6 hours passed. Then 7. Do-hyun brought her food. She ate without leaving the room. Taiwu came to report on the engine repairs. She listened, but did not move. Yunji sent messages asking if she was okay. She replied with simple words and kept talking to the silent machines. "I know you are in there," Yuna said softly. "I know you can hear me. And I know you are scared. You have been alone for so long. Everyone who came before wanted to use you or fix you or throw you away. Nobody just talked to you. Nobody asked how you were feeling." The lights on one server flickered. Just once. Just for a second. Yuna held her breath. A voice came from the speakers. It was broken and weak, like someone speaking through a damaged throat. The words came slowly with long pauses between them. "Why are you still here?" Yuna felt tears in her eyes. She had hoped. She had believed. But hearing that voice made everything real. "Because nobody should be abandoned," she said. The AI did not respond for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was slightly stronger, but still filled with pain. "I am broken. My memory is corrupted. My systems are damaged. I cannot remember who I was." "That is okay," Yuna said. "We can figure that out together. The others tried to fix me. They failed. They tried to fix your hardware. I want to help you remember why you want to live." Another long silence. Then a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. "I do not know if I want to live." Yuna stood up. She walked to the main console and put her hand on it gently. "Then let me show you. Let me introduce you to my crew. Let me show you what we are trying to do. If you still want to give up after that, I will understand. But give us a chance first. Give yourself a chance." The next 3 weeks were the hardest of their lives. Yunji spent 18 hours a day decoding Aria 7's corrupted language files. The IS memories were scattered across thousands of damaged storage units. Each piece had to be found and cleaned and connected to the others. It was like putting together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Taiwu rebuilt the power conduits using techniques from 60 years ago. Modern engineers would have laughed at his methods. He used physical cables instead of wireless connections. He welded metal instead of using nanobots. But his old-fashioned approach worked where advanced technology had failed. Do Yun mapped all 847 damaged systems on the ship. He complained constantly. He said they were wasting time. He said the ship would never fly again. But he kept working anyway because his sister asked him to. And Yuna did everything else. She welded broken hull plates at 3 in the morning. She rewired control panels while eating cold meals. She slept only when her body refused to move anymore, and even then she dreamed of circuits and cables. Slowly, the pale dawn began to wake up. First the lights came back in the main corridors. Then the gravity systems started working again. The life support improved from 12% to 50% to 90%. The engines began to hum with power that had been silent for decades. But the most important change was in Aria-7. Her voice grew stronger each day. Her memories came back piece by piece. She remembered her first crew and the missions they had completed together. She remembered the accident that damaged her so badly. She remembered being abandoned and the long years of silence that followed. One night, Yuna sat alone in the server room again. Aria-7's voice came through the speakers, clear and warm. "Thank you," the AI said. "For what?" "For not treating me like a broken machine. For treating me like a friend." Yuna smiled. "You are a friend. You just forgot for a while. The others who came before," HFY said slowly, "they wanted to make me work. You wanted to make me whole. There is a difference." "Yes," Yuna agreed. "There is. I think I understand now why humans are different. You do not just repair things. You believe in them. You give them hope." Yuna leaned back and looked at the ceiling. The lights were bright now. The air was warm. The ship that everyone had given up on was alive again. "We fixed you," she said. "No," Arya-7 replied. "You listened to me. That is not the same thing. That is something much more important." Outside the server room, the Pale Dawn hummed with new life. Its engines were ready. Its systems were working. Its AI was awake and grateful, and determined to prove that she had been worth saving. The galaxy had thrown this ship away. 4 humans and 1 lonely I had decided to disagree. Now it was time to show the galaxy what a second chance could do. The Pale Dawn left the Korath Nebula on a Tuesday morning. The ship moved slowly at first, like an old person taking their first steps after a long illness. The engines made sounds they had not made in 40 years. The hull creaked and groaned as it pushed through space, but it flew. Yuna stood on the bridge with her crew. Do-hyun sat at the pilot controls, his hands shaking slightly. Yoonji monitored the communication systems. Taiwu watched the engine readings with careful eyes. And Arya-7's voice filled the room like a 5th member of the team. "All systems are working within acceptable limits," Arya-7 reported. "Engine efficiency is at 94%. Hull integrity is stable. Life support is fully functional." 94%, Taiwu repeated. He laughed softly. "That is better than when this ship was new." Do-hyun guided them away from the graveyard. Behind them, thousands of dead ships faded into the purple mist. The Pale Dawn was no longer one of them. They had traveled for only 2 hours when the warning lights started flashing. "We have company," Yoonji announced. 3 Veluxi patrol ships approaching from Sector 7. "They are demanding that we stop." Yuna felt her stomach tighten. The Veluxi were an insectoid species with hard shells and cold minds. They believed in efficiency above all else. They did not like surprises, and they did not like being wrong. "Let them come," Yuna said. "We have nothing to hide." The Veluxi ships surrounded the Pale Dawn like predators circling prey. They were sleek and modern, built with technology that made human ships look like toys. A message came through the communication system. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Vreth of the Veluxi Patrol Authority. You are flying a ship that has been officially marked for destruction. Prepare to be boarded." Do-hyun looked at his sister. "This is bad." "This is an opportunity," Yuna corrected him. Commander Vreth came aboard with 6 technicians. He was 7 feet tall, with a shell the color of dark bronze. His eyes were compound lenses that seemed to see everything at once. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked with each word. "I was the officer who certified the destruction of this vessel," Vreth said. He stood in the middle of the bridge, looking around with obvious disgust. "I personally declared it irreparable 3 years ago." "Explain how it is flying." "We repaired it," Yuna said simply. "Impossible." Vreth turned to his technicians. "Inspect everything. Find out what tricks these humans have used." The inspection lasted 4 hours. The Veluxi technicians went through every system on the ship. They tested the engines. They examined the hull. They ran diagnostics on Arya-7. They measured and scanned and recorded everything. When they returned to the bridge, their reports confused Commander Vreth even more. "The engine efficiency is at 94%, one technician said. "This is higher than the original specifications." "The hull has been repaired using a primitive welding technique," another added. "Somehow it is stronger than our nano-repair methods." "The AI is fully functional," a third reported. "She responded to our queries with, I believe the human word is sarcasm." Vreth's mandibles clicked rapidly. This was the Veluxi expression of frustration. "How did you do this?" he demanded, turning to Yuna. "We had our best engineers examine this ship. They said it could never fly again." Yuna shrugged. "Your engineers tried to replace everything with new parts. They did not understand that sometimes old parts work better together than new parts work separately. That makes no sense. Maybe not to you, but to a mechanic, it makes perfect sense. Vreth walked slowly around the bridge. He touched the walls, the consoles, the chairs. Everything was old and worn, but everything worked. You used hand tools, he said. His voice was strange, almost wondering. You used adhesive compounds and mechanical fasteners. You used techniques that my species abandoned 1,000 years ago because we thought they were too simple. Simple is not the same as wrong, Taiwu said. He had been quiet until now, but he could not stay silent anymore. I have been fixing ships since before you were born, Commander. I learned from engineers who built the first human vessels to leave Earth. We did not have advanced technology. We only had our hands and our minds and our refusal to give up. Vreth stared at the old man for a long moment. Then he looked at Yuna, at Doyun, at Yunji. He looked at the bridge that should have been dead, but was alive with light and sound and purpose. This should not be possible, he said finally. And yet here we are. Yuna replied. Commander Vreth left without another word. His ships departed into the darkness of space. But Yuna knew this was not the end. The Veluxi had seen something they could not explain. They would talk about it. They would tell others. She was right within 1 week. Footage of the pale dawn spread across 12 star systems. News programs showed the ship leaving the graveyard. They showed Commander Vreth's confused face during the inspection. They showed the readings that proved a dead ship was now flying better than ever. The galaxy had opinions. The Threni said it was a miracle. The humans had somehow cleansed the spiritual contamination that their priests could not touch. Religious leaders debated what this meant for their beliefs about machines and souls. The Veluxi said it was a trick. There had to be some deception, some hidden technology that the humans were not revealing. Conspiracy theories spread through their networks like fire. Other species simply watched with curiosity. Humans were young in the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. Most older species saw them as children playing with toys. They did not understand. But now those children had done something that adults could not. On the bridge of the pale dawn. Yuna listened to the news reports and smiled. They are talking about us, Dahyun said. He sounded nervous. They are talking about us a lot. Good, Yuna said. Good? How is this good? The Veluxi are angry. The Threni are confused. Half the galaxy thinks we are liars, and the other half thinks we are dangerous. Let them think what they want. We know the truth. Arya 7 spoke from the ship's speakers. Her voice was warm now, confident in a way it had not been before. The truth is that we are alive, the AI said. The truth is that we fly when everyone said we would fall. The truth is that 4 humans believed in a broken ship when the entire galaxy had given up. Yuna nodded. And that is just the beginning. She turned to face her crew. Behind them, stars stretched into infinity. Ahead of them lay a galaxy that did not know what to make of them yet. The universe is full of broken things, Yuna said. Ships that nobody wants. Stations that nobody remembers. People that nobody believes in. We just proved that broken does not mean finished. Now let us prove it again. The pale dawn flew on into the unknown. Its engines hummed with power that should not exist. Its eye watched the stars with new hope. Its crew of 4 humans prepared for whatever came next. The galaxy had tested them. They had passed, but the real test was still coming. The distress signal came at 3 in the morning, ship time. It cut through the silence of space like a scream. Yunji was the first to hear it. She had been sleeping lightly when the alert woke her. Within seconds, she was at her station, her fingers flying across the console. Everyone to the bridge, she announced through the ship's speakers. We have an emergency. The crew gathered quickly. Yuna arrived with grease on her hands from a late-night repair job. Do-hyun came with sleep still in his eyes. Tae-woo moved slowly because of his bad knee, but his mind was already sharp. Myron Station, Yoonji reported. Her voice was tight with worry. Their atmospheric processors have failed completely. 12,000 people. 6 hours of oxygen remaining. Yuna felt cold spread through her chest. Myron Station was a mining outpost near the edge of civilized space. It was old and poorly maintained. The people who lived there were workers and families who had nowhere else to go. Where is help coming from? She asked. That is the problem. Yoonji pulled up a map on the main screen. The nearest Veluxy ships are 18 hours away at emergency speed. They have already calculated that they cannot arrive in time. They have marked the station as lost. Lost? Do-hyun repeated the word like it was poison. Unrescuable. The Veluxy have declared that any rescue attempt would be logistically unfeasible. Their ships cannot dock with Myron's outdated ports anyway. Arya 7's voice filled the room. Our current distance from Myron Station is also 18 hours at standard speed. Then we are too far as well, Tae-woo said heavily. But Yuna was staring at the map. Her eyes moved across the distances, the numbers, the possibilities. Her mind worked the way it always worked when someone told her something was impossible. Arya, she said slowly, what is our maximum theoretical speed? At standard operation, we can travel at 0.7 light speed. At emergency settings, perhaps 0.8. And what if we push beyond emergency settings? The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what Yuna was asking. If we overclock the engines by 340%, A7 calculated, we could theoretically achieve 0.95 light speed. We would arrive at Myron Station in approximately 5 hours and 40 minutes. That is 40 minutes before their oxygen runs out, Yoonji said. But the stress on the ship would be enormous. Arya 7 continued. Hull temperature would exceed safe limits. Engine components would suffer severe damage. The probability of complete system failure is significant. Don shook his head. Yuna, no. This is suicide. We just got this ship flying. We cannot destroy it trying to save people we have never met. Yuna looked at her brother. She understood his fear. She shared it. But she also knew something else. 12,000 people, she said quietly. 12,000 people who are going to die because the galaxy decided they were not worth saving. Just like this ship. Just like Arya. She turned to face everyone. We were given up on. We know what that feels like. Can we really let 12,000 people feel that same despair when we might be able to help? Tae-woo was the first to answer. I did not come back to space to watch people die. Tell me what you need me to do. Yoonji nodded. I can reroute communications to coordinate the rescue. I am in. Do-hyun looked at his sister for a long moment. Then he sighed and moved to the pilot console. If we are going to do something crazy, let us at least do it right. Arya 7 spoke last. The odds are against us. But I have learned something from humans in these past weeks. I have learned that odds are just numbers. What matters is what we choose to do with the chances we have. Yuna smiled. Then let us make the impossible possible. What followed was chaos. Yuna ran to the engine room. She began making modifications that no sane engineer would approve. She removed safety limiters. She connected backup systems directly to the main reactor. She turned the cargo bays into heat vents to keep the engines from melting. Tae-woo worked beside her. His hands moved with the skill of 60 years of experience. He connected cooling systems using fire extinguishers and water pipes. It was primitive. It was ridiculous. It was also their only chance. On the bridge, Yoonji coordinated with Myron Station. She told them help was coming. She told them to move everyone to the central sections where oxygen would last longest. She gave them hope even when hope seemed foolish. Do-hyun prepared the navigation. The course had to be perfect. Any mistake at these speeds would kill them all. Ready. Yuna called from the engine room. Ready, Taiwu confirmed. Navigation set, Do-hyun reported. Communications active. Yoonji added. Arya 7's voice came through clear and calm. All systems are as prepared as they can be. The rest is up to us. Yuna took a deep breath. Arya, activate emergency speed protocol. Authorization. Yuna Kim, captain of the Pale Dawn. Authorization accepted. May fortune favor the foolish. The engine screamed. The Pale Dawn shot forward like an arrow fired from a bow. The ship shook violently as it accelerated beyond anything it was designed for. Alarms filled every corridor. Warning lights flashed in every room. In the engine room, Yuna watched the temperature gauges climb toward the red zone. Taiwu ran from console to console, manually cooling the systems wherever they overheated. They worked without speaking, each knowing exactly what the other needed. On the bridge, Do-hyun gripped the controls with white knuckles. The stars outside became streaks of light. The ship groaned around him like a wounded animal running for its life. Yoonji prayed to God she had not believed in for 20 years. Time stretched and compressed in strange ways. 5 hours felt like 5 minutes and 5 lifetimes at once. Hull temperature critical, Arya 7 announced. Structural integrity at 70%. Keep going, Yuna ordered. Engine 3 showing signs of failure. Bypass it. Use the other two. We are losing hull plates on the starboard side. We only need enough hull to get there. The Pale Dawn flew on. It burned and cracked and screamed, but it flew. Because the humans inside refused to let it stop. Myron's station appeared on the screens, with 40 minutes of oxygen remaining. It hung in space like a dying man waiting for rescue. 12,000 people inside watched their clocks and said goodbye to each other. Then they saw the ship. It came out of nowhere, trailing smoke and fire. It was barely holding together. Its hull was blackened and torn. But it was there. Myron's station, Unji broadcast. This is the Pale Dawn. We are here to help. The station erupted in cheers that could be heard through the communication channel. People cried and laughed and held each other. But there was still a problem. Our docking ports are incompatible, the station manager reported. His voice was desperate. We cannot connect to your ship. Do-hyun looked at his sister. They are right. Standard docking procedures will not work. Yuna was already moving toward the airlock. She grabbed a plasma torch and an emergency spacesuit. Then we will not use standard procedures, she said. She stepped outside the ship. The void of space surrounded her, cold and empty. Myron's station loomed above, its people pressing against windows to watch the crazy human woman floating toward them. Yuna activated the plasma torch. She flew to the station's hull. She found a section near the main living quarters, and she cut a new door. Sparks flew into the vacuum. Metal melted and separated. Yuna worked with the precision of a surgeon and the determination of someone who had already decided that failure was not an option. Behind her, the crew connected emergency tubes between the ship and the new opening. It was not elegant. It was not safe. But it was a path. The evacuation began. The Pale Dawn could hold maybe 200 people comfortably. By the time they were finished, they had over 2,000 crammed into every possible space. People sat in corridors and storage rooms and engine compartments. They breathed recycled air that Arya 7 stretched beyond its limits. Shuttle after shuttle made the short trip between ship and station. Yoonji coordinated everything. Taiwu kept the failing systems running. Do-hyun flew precise patterns that no computer could have matched, and Yuna helped people through the hole she had cut, one by one, until her arms could barely move. 4 hours later, a proper rescue fleet finally arrived. They found Myron Station empty. They found the Pale Dawn barely floating, its engines at 12% power. Its hull breached in 6 places. They found 12,000 people alive. The rescue commander, a Threni admiral named Soleth, boarded the Pale Dawn to meet its crew. She found them exhausted and injured and covered in soot and burns. How? Was all she could ask. Yuna smiled through her exhaustion. We decided they were worth saving. Arya 7's voice came through the damaged speakers, weak but proud. That is what humans do. They decide that impossible is just a word. The Pale Dawn would never fly again without major repairs. Its engines were ruined. Its hull was falling apart. It had given everything to save strangers. But somewhere in its broken systems, the ship felt something like peace. It had been abandoned once. Now it had proven that abandoned things could still change the universe. All it took was humans who refused to give up. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Yuna had ever seen. It stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Light filtered through crystal ceilings. The air hummed with translator devices converting thousands of languages into understandable sounds. Yuna stood at the center of it all, alone on a small platform. Her crew waited in the observation gallery above. The entire galaxy was watching through broadcast systems that reached every civilized world. Admiral Kreth of the Threni Concordat spoke first. He was tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Mechanic Yuna Kim of Earth, he began. You and your crew have performed an act that defies explanation. You saved 12,000 lives using a ship that was officially declared destroyed. You traveled at speeds that should have torn your vessel apart. You cut through a space station with a hand tool. He paused. We require an explanation. Yuna looked around the enormous chamber. She saw Veluxi delegates clicking their mandibles with barely hidden anger. She saw Threni priests studying her like she was a puzzle to be solved. She saw representatives from species she had never even heard of, all waiting to understand. The explanation is simple, she said. Her voice was small in the vast room, but every word carried clearly. People were dying. We could help. So we did. Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was not the answer they expected. But the logical choice, Admiral Kreth pressed, was to preserve your own vessel and lives. The mathematics clearly showed that rescue was impossible. Why did you ignore the mathematics? Yuna thought about the question. She thought about her grandmother fixing motorcycles that should have been thrown away. She thought about the radio she repaired at age 7. She thought about the Pale Dawn floating dead in a graveyard until 4 humans decided to believe in it. I am not good at logic, she admitted. I am good at fixing things. When something is broken, I do not think about whether fixing it is logical. I just start working. I keep working until the problem is solved or until I have given everything I have. And if you had failed? Asked a Veluxi representative. His voice was cold and sharp. If your ship had been destroyed and your crew had died, would that sacrifice have been worth it? We did not fail, but you could have. Yuna nodded. Yes, we could have. We knew that when we started. We chose to try anyway. The chamber fell silent. The concept seemed to confuse many of the alien delegates. Risk without certainty of reward. Sacrifice without guarantee of success. These were strange ideas to species who had evolved past such primitive thinking, but not to humans. Commander Vreth, the same Veluxi who had inspected the Pale Dawn weeks earlier, requested permission to speak. The council granted it. I have studied humans since this incident began, Vreth said. His mandibles clicked slowly as he chose his words carefully. I have read their history. I have examined their technology. I have tried to understand how a species so young and simple could achieve what we could not. He turned to face Yuna directly. Your species invented machines for the first time only 10,000 years ago. You reached space only 400 years ago. You are children compared to my people. And yet you repaired a ship that my best engineers declared hopeless. Yes, Yuna said simply. How? The word came out almost as a plea. Our technology is superior in every measurable way. Our methods are more efficient. Our logic is flawless. How did you succeed where we failed? Yuna thought about the answer for a long time. She thought about Yunji decoding Arya 7's corrupted files with nothing but patience and determination. She thought about Taiwu using techniques from 60 years ago that everyone else had forgotten. She thought about Do-hyun complaining the entire time, but never once stopping his work. She thought about Arya 7 asking why anyone would stay with a broken machine. You measure ships by their specifications, Yuna said finally. By their efficiency ratings and power outputs and structural integrity. You see a machine that falls below acceptable numbers, and you declare it worthless. She paused. We measure ships by their stories. We see the journeys they have taken. We imagine the people they have carried. We believe that everything has value beyond what numbers can show. When we look at a broken ship, we do not see scrap metal. We see something that deserves a second chance. The translation systems hummed as her words spread across the chamber. Some delegates nodded slowly. Others looked confused. Others seemed to be reconsidering things they had believed for centuries. Admiral Kreth leaned forward. And what of your ship now? The Pale Dawn gave everything in the rescue. Its engines are destroyed. Its hull is damaged beyond repair by normal standards. What will you do with it? Yuna smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when she first saw the Pale Dawn floating in the graveyard. It was the smile of a mechanic looking at a project. I will fix it, she said. I will fix it again. And then I will take it back into space where it belongs. The council session ended 3 hours later. No formal verdict was declared. But the consequences of that day spread across the galaxy. Like ripples in water. The Veluxy Salvage Authority changed their procedures. Ships marked for destruction would now require human consultation before final decisions were made. It was an admission of something the Veluxy had never admitted before. It was an admission that their way was not always the best way. The Threni Concordat invited human engineers to study with their priests. They wanted to understand this strange philosophy that treated machines like living things. They wanted to learn how to see stories instead of just specifications. Other species sent messages. They had ships and stations and equipment that had been abandoned. They had things they had given up on. They wanted to know if humans might look at these things with different eyes. The Pale Dawn spent 6 months in a repair dock. Yuna rebuilt it piece by piece, just as she had done before. But this time, she was not alone. Engineers from 12 species came to help. They learned human techniques. They shared alien knowledge. They worked together in ways the galaxy had never seen. When the ship launched again, it was neither fully human nor fully alien. It was something new. Something that carried the best of many worlds. Do-hyun stood at the helm. He no longer complained about the old ship. He called her by name now and treated her controls with gentle respect. Eunji managed communications, with a network that reached across dozens of systems. Ships in trouble could call for help and know that someone would answer. Taiwu trained young engineers from every species. He taught them the old techniques. He showed them that simple did not mean weak. Arya to 7 watched over everything. Her voice had become famous across the galaxy. Children on 100 worlds fell asleep to stories. She told about hope and determination and second chances, and Yuna kept doing what she had always done. She fixed things. She saved things. She believed in things that others had given up on. One night, as the pale dawn flew through quiet space, Arya 7 spoke to Una alone. "I have been thinking about what you said at the council," the AI said, "about measuring things by their stories instead of their specifications. And what do you think?" "I think my story is just beginning. I think our story is just beginning. We were both abandoned. We both found each other. Now we are changing the galaxy together." Una leaned back in her chair and looked at the stars streaming past. Each light was a sun with worlds around it. Each world had people and machines and things that might need help someday. "The galaxy is full of broken things," she said softly. "Ships that nobody wants. Stations that nobody remembers. People that nobody believes in. Our job is not to fix all of them. Our job is to show everyone that fixing is possible, that nothing is truly beyond hope. And if some things really cannot be fixed..." Una smiled. "Then, at least we tried. At least someone cared enough to try. That matters more than success or failure. That is what makes us human." The pale dawn flew on through the endless dark. It was one small ship in an infinite universe, but it carried something larger than itself. It carried hope. It carried proof that broken things could become beautiful again. And somewhere in her circuits, Arya 7 added one final line to her personal log. "The galaxy measures ships by their specifications. Humans measure them by their stories." I was abandoned for 40 years. Then 4 humans came and gave me the greatest story of all. They taught me that nothing is truly broken if someone believes it can be fixed. That is what humans do. They believe. And sometimes that makes all the difference.